New York City had always been alive, a restless heart beating in neon lights, honking horns, and endless footsteps on crowded sidewalks. But that night, the city felt different. It was pouring, one of those relentless summer storms where the sky just cracks open and empties everything it has. The streets were slick and shining, the kind of rain that soaks you to the bone within seconds, no matter how fast you run. I was rushing down 8th Avenue, jacket pulled tight, sneakers splashing through puddles, thinking about nothing more than getting home, a hot shower, and maybe ordering some takeout. But then, I saw her. At first I thought maybe the storm was messing with me. She was sitting right there on the sidewalk, under the dim glow of a broken street lamp. A young woman, her hair dripping wet, strands plastered to her pale face. She wasn't shielding herself from the rain, wasn't even trying. And in her lap, swaddled in what looked like a thin, drenched blanket, was a baby. A baby. I stopped in my tracks. My heart lurched painfully in my chest. She was trembling, clutching the little bundle like it was the last piece of her world. And maybe it was. Hey, are you okay?" My voice came out rough, too urgent. She flinched at the sound, her eyes lifting to meet mine. God, those eyes, wide, glassy, green like spring leaves washed by rain. There was so much pain in them, it nearly knocked the air out of me. Her lips quivered, her voice barely above the roar of the storm. I don't have anywhere to go." My throat tightened. I knelt down in front of her, rainwater dripping from my hair, pooling around us. "You're sitting here in the rain with a baby?" She held the child closer, as though I might take him away. "He's only 2 months old," she whispered. "I tried to protect him, but I can't do this alone." The baby stirred, letting out a soft whimper that cut straight through me. His tiny fists pushed weakly against the wet blanket, his face scrunched. He didn't cry loud, just that little broken sound, like he didn't even have the strength. I felt something twist violently inside me. I couldn't just walk past, no one could, not if they had a shred of humanity left. "What happened?" I asked gently. Her lips trembled harder, and she shook her head, strands of soaked hair falling into her face. Finally, she looked at me, her voice trembling with both fear and anger. "My husband. He said I was useless. He hit me. Then he threw me out with the baby." Her voice cracked, but she swallowed it back, clutching the baby tighter. "He said we didn't matter." The words hit me like a punch. My stomach knotted. The storm around us suddenly seemed quieter compared to the hurricane that had just ripped through my chest. I wanted to say something, anything, but what words could possibly cover the cruelty she'd endured? I took a slow breath and softened my voice. "Listen. You and your baby don't belong here. Not like this. You're freezing. You need shelter. Please, come with me. I won't hurt you. I can't leave you like this." She hesitated, her eyes searching my face like she was trying to find something. Maybe truth, maybe hope. And for a moment all I could think was, why her? Why tonight? Why did fate bring me down this street at this exact moment? Then the baby let out another whimper, and I saw her walls crack just a little. She nodded, slow, uncertain. "Okay," she whispered. I reached out my hand to help her up. She stared at it, then finally placed her trembling fingers in mine. Her touch was so fragile, yet it carried a quiet strength. And right there, in the middle of a stormy New York night with rain cascading down around us, I knew my life had just changed forever. Her hand was cold, icy almost, and fragile in mine. I pulled her up gently, making sure she didn't slip on the rain-slicked sidewalk. She kept the baby close to her chest, shielding him with her arms as if the whole world might try to take him away. We walked fast, the storm pounding us from every direction. I kept glancing at her, at how she cradled that tiny boy, whispering soft words to calm him. It hit me then, just how surreal this was. 10 minutes ago, I was just another guy rushing home in the rain. Now, I was leading a stranger and her baby through the city, both of them depending on me. When we finally reached my building, I fumbled with the keys, hands shaking more from nerves than the cold. My apartment wasn't anything special, just a one-bedroom place in Hell's Kitchen, but it was warm, dry, and safe. "Come in," I urged, holding the door open. She hesitated, like stepping inside meant trusting me with more than she was ready to give. But then the baby stirred again, and that decided it. She slipped inside, water dripping from her clothes onto the hardwood floor. I grabbed a couple of towels and handed them to her. "Here, dry off. And, I've got some clean clothes you can borrow. Not exactly glamorous, but they'll be warm." She took the towel slowly, almost cautiously, like she wasn't used to kindness anymore. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice so soft I almost missed it. I turned toward the kitchen. "I'll make something hot. You both need it." While I heated water for tea and rummaged for something quick to eat, I kept stealing glances at her. She'd unwrapped the baby, drying his tiny face with careful hands. He had the faintest patch of dark hair, soft cheeks, and the most innocent expression I'd ever seen. Despite everything, he seemed peaceful. She rocked him gently, humming something under her breath. That sound, it was tender, aching, beautiful in its sadness. I had to look away before my chest split open. When I came back with 2 steaming mugs, she looked up at me with those green eyes again. They were clearer now, but still heavy, like they carried years of sorrow. "I don't even know your name," she said softly. I smiled a little, awkward. "Daniel. And you?" "Lila," she whispered, then glanced at the baby. "And this is Noah." Lila and Noah. The names fit them perfectly, delicate yet strong. "Well, Lila," I said, setting the tea down beside her. "You don't have to worry tonight. You're safe here. No one's going to hurt you." Her lips pressed together like she wanted to believe me, but wasn't sure she could. I didn't push. Trust couldn't be demanded. It had to be earned. We sat in silence for a while, just listening to the rain hammering the windows. Finally, she spoke again, her voice low, trembling. "I don't know what I'm going to do," she admitted. "I have no family here. I don't have money, nowhere to stay. And Noah, he needs so much more than I can give." I leaned forward, my elbows on my knees, searching her face. "You've already given him the most important thing. You're here. You're fighting for him. That makes you stronger than you think." Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away quickly, as if she wasn't used to letting anyone see her break. "I don't feel strong," she whispered. "Then let me be strong for you. For both of you," I said, without even thinking. The words just slipped out, and I meant them. God, I meant them. For a moment, the air between us shifted. She looked at me like no one had ever said something like that to her before, as if the very idea of someone standing beside her was foreign. Noah stirred then, letting out a tiny cry. Lila instantly rocked him, her whole face softening as she hummed again. Watching her like that, tender, devoted, protective, I felt something stir inside me I couldn't quite name. Maybe it was admiration. Maybe it was more. All I knew was that the rain outside no longer mattered. For the first time in years, the storm wasn't around me. It was inside me, and I wasn't sure I wanted it to stop. The storm eased by morning. When sunlight finally cut through the curtains, it felt almost unreal after the night we'd had. I woke up on the couch. Figured Lila and Noah needed the bed more than I did. My neck ached from the stiff position, but when I sat up and saw her, all that discomfort disappeared. She was sitting in the armchair by the window, Noah asleep in her arms, a soft, golden light brushing against her damp hair. She looked exhausted, shadows under her eyes, yet there was a strange beauty in the way she held her son, like he was both her anchor and her reason to keep floating. "Morning," I said quietly, not wanting to wake the baby. Her eyes flicked toward me, cautious as always. "You didn't have to give up your bed," I shrugged. "It's just furniture. You and Noah needed it more than I did." Her lips parted like she wanted to respond, but instead she just looked down at Noah and brushed a finger against his cheek. The room fell into a comfortable silence for a while, broken only by the soft rhythm of the baby's breathing. Finally, I asked the question I'd been holding back all night. "Lila, what happened? With your husband?" Her hands stiffened. I instantly regretted asking, but she surprised me by answering, her voice low and trembling. "I met Mark when I was 19, she began. "He was charming, older, said all the right things. For a while, he made me feel like I mattered. My parents, they didn't care much about me, so when he promised me the world, I believed him. I watched her closely, my chest tightening. But it didn't take long for the promises to turn into control. He wanted to know everything I did everywhere I went. If I disagreed, he'd get angry. And then the anger turned into... She paused, swallowing hard, pressing her cheek to Noah's tiny head. Into bruises. My fists clenched against my knees. I had to bite back the rush of anger boiling inside me. When I got pregnant with Noah, I thought it would change him, she continued, her voice breaking. I thought maybe being a father would make him softer, but it only made things worse. He said the baby ruined his life. He said I ruined his life. Her voice cracked fully then, tears spilling onto her cheeks. Last night, he told me to get out, said he never wanted to see us again. I sat there, feeling like someone had knocked all the air out of me. How could anyone treat her that way? How could anyone look at her, the way she cradled her son, the love shining even through her pain, and decide she wasn't enough? Lila, I said firmly, leaning forward, he doesn't deserve you. He doesn't deserve Noah. You're not weak. You survived him, and that makes you stronger than he'll ever be. Her eyes lifted to mine, shining with tears. For the first time since I'd met her, she didn't look away. She just stared at me, like she was searching for truth again. I held her gaze, letting her see I meant every word. Something shifted then, subtle, fragile, but real. A connection. Not just pity or kindness. Something deeper. Noah stirred, making a soft sound, and she quickly looked down again, kissing the top of his head. But I could still feel that moment between us lingering in the air. I stood and walked toward the kitchen. You must be starving. Let me make breakfast. French toast, okay? She gave the faintest smile. Small, hesitant, but there. It's been a long time since anyone cooked for me. Well, you're in luck, I said, forcing a light tone. I make a mean French toast. At least, I think it's mean. Depends on how badly I burn it. Her soft laugh filled the room, faint but real. It was the most beautiful sound I'd heard in years. And right then, as I cracked eggs into a bowl, I realized something terrifying. I wanted to keep making her laugh. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to hold that baby and tell him he'd never be unwanted again. I wanted more than I should. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid. Not of the storm outside, but of the one building inside me. The scent of cinnamon and butter filled the apartment as I set plates on the table. I wasn't lying about French toast being my specialty. Growing up, it was the only thing I'd mastered without my mom hovering over me. Lila sat across from me, Noah resting in her arms. She looked hesitant at first, almost guilty, like she didn't deserve something as simple as a warm meal. But when she took her first bite, her eyes fluttered shut for just a second, and I swear I caught the faintest smile tug at her lips. This is, she whispered, opening her eyes again, really good. See? Told you, I grinned, relieved to see a spark of light in her. I may not have a 5-star kitchen, but I can handle breakfast. She gave a small laugh, shaking her head. It's been so long since I sat at a table like this, with someone who... Her voice faltered, then she shrugged. Cared. The weight of her words hung between us. I didn't want to press, so instead I leaned toward Noah. Mind if I hold him while you finish eating? Her entire body stiffened at first. Her grip on him tightened, protective instincts flaring. But then she saw the way I extended my arms, slow, gentle, patient. After a long pause, she carefully handed Noah over. He was lighter than I expected, warm and fragile in my arms. His tiny fingers immediately latched around my thumb, gripping like he already trusted me. I stared down at him, completely mesmerized. Hey, buddy, I murmured softly, rocking him just a little. I'm Daniel, and you. You're tougher than most men I've ever met. Lila watched me closely, her expression unreadable, but I could feel her gaze, sharp and searching. Noah made a tiny cooing sound, wriggling in my arms before settling again. I smiled without even realizing it. You know, Lila, I think he likes me. Her lips curved slightly, though her eyes shimmered. He doesn't let anyone hold him, not even Mark. The way she said his name, the bitterness in it, made my chest ache. I pressed a soft kiss against Noah's tiny forehead, surprising even myself. He's safe here, I said quietly. Both of you are. Her eyes locked on mine again. For a moment, it felt like time slowed, the only sounds the rain dripping outside and Noah's soft breathing between us. Something unspoken lingered, something fragile but powerful. After breakfast, I laid Noah gently in the makeshift crib I'd set up with pillows and blankets on the couch. Lila looked at it, then at me, as though she couldn't believe someone would think of such a small kindness. "You didn't have to do all this," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, scratching the back of my neck. "But I wanted to." She lowered herself onto the couch, exhaustion pulling at her, and before long, she dozed off with Noah beside her. I stood there for a while just watching them, the way her arm curled protectively even in sleep, the way Noah's tiny chest rose and fell in rhythm with hers. Something stirred inside me then, something I hadn't felt in years. I'd lived in this city for so long, always chasing work, money, distractions. I'd forgotten what it was like to feel needed, to feel like someone's presence in your life wasn't just optional, but essential. When Lila woke later, she caught me looking. Instead of retreating, she held my gaze. "Why are you helping us, Daniel?" she asked softly. The truth slipped out before I could stop it. "Because I can't not." She blinked, her lips parting just slightly. I expected her to turn away, but she didn't. She just looked at me, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. And maybe she was. Maybe so was I. That night, after Noah finally fell asleep, we sat together on the couch. She leaned back, exhausted but calmer, sipping tea while I told her stories about growing up in Brooklyn, about my mom's tiny kitchen where French toast was practically a sacred ritual. For the first time, I heard her laugh freely, and that sound, it filled something in me I hadn't even realized was empty. I knew then, this wasn't just about helping a stranger anymore. This was about something deeper, something dangerous, something I was starting to want too much. And as much as it scared me, I couldn't stop. The following days blurred into a rhythm I hadn't expected and didn't want to end. Morning sunlight spilling through the curtains, the smell of coffee filling the apartment, Noah's soft cries turning into giggles whenever I leaned over his crib. Lila slowly began to relax. At first, she moved like a guest afraid to overstep, but little by little, she let herself belong to the space. She folded laundry with me, helped tidy the kitchen, even teased me once about how badly I stacked dishes. But it wasn't the chores or the routine, it was her. The way she smiled more now, small and cautious, but real. The way she sang to Noah in the evenings, her voice wrapping around the room like a lullaby. The way she looked at me sometimes, eyes soft, like she couldn't quite decide if I was real or just another fleeting kindness. One night, after Noah had fallen asleep, we sat on the balcony together. The storm from that first night felt like a lifetime ago. The air was warm, the city lights flickering below us, distant and alive. "It's strange," she said quietly, her arms wrapped around herself. "For the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm holding my breath." I glanced at her. "That's a good thing, right?" She nodded, though her smile was fragile. "It is, but it scares me, because good things never last for me." I leaned back against the chair, fighting the urge to reach for her hand. Maybe that's because you've never had someone to fight for you, to make sure the good things don't disappear. Her eyes found mine, and the night seemed to pause. There it was again, that current between us, invisible but undeniable. Her lips parted as if to speak, but she quickly looked away, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I wanted to tell her everything, that from the moment I saw her in the rain, she hadn't left my thoughts, that I'd started caring more about her and Noah than I cared about myself. But I held back. She'd been through hell, and the last thing I wanted was to overwhelm her. Still, the silence between us felt louder than any confession. The next day, something shifted again. I came home from work, just a short shift I couldn't skip, and found her sitting on the floor, Noah lying on a blanket beside her. She was laughing, tickling his tiny feet, and he was giggling in that high-pitched baby way that made your heart squeeze. I froze in the doorway, just watching. Her hair glowed in the afternoon sun, her cheeks flushed with joy, her laughter soft but free. It was like stepping into a painting, one so warm and tender it didn't feel like it belonged to me. When she noticed me, she blushed, quickly scooping Noah into her arms. I I didn't hear you come in. Don't stop, I said, smiling. You looked happy. She stared at me for a moment. Then her lips curved faintly. I was. That night, after Noah was asleep, I finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had been burning inside me. Lila, do you ever think about what comes next? She hesitated. You mean, after this? After your kindness runs out? My chest tightened. That's not what I mean. I mean, what do you want for yourself? For Noah? Her eyes softened, but they filled with fear too. I just want him to grow up safe, to never feel unwanted like I did. As for me, she shook her head. I don't dare to dream anymore. I leaned closer, my voice low but firm. Then let me dream for you. Her breath caught, our eyes locked, and the air between us shifted again, heavier this time, charged. For one dizzying moment, I thought she might let me kiss her. But Noah stirred in the next room, breaking the moment. She pulled back, her cheeks flushed, her gaze darting away. Still, as I lay awake later, listening to the soft sounds of the city, I knew something for certain. I wasn't just protecting her anymore. I was falling for her. By the time a week had passed, my apartment didn't feel like just mine anymore. It felt like ours. Noah's baby blanket was draped across the couch. Lila's soft humming filled the rooms. And for the first time in years, I came home to something that felt alive instead of empty. But just when things seemed almost too good, the shadows of her past came creeping back. It was a Friday evening. I had just finished cooking dinner. Spaghetti, nothing fancy. But Lila swore it was better than any restaurant pasta. We were sitting at the table, Noah babbling happily in his little seat, when there was a loud, heavy knock on the door. Both of us froze. The knock came again, harder this time. Lila's face drained of color. She gripped Noah's chair so tightly her knuckles turned white. It's him, she whispered, her voice breaking. It's Mark. My stomach dropped. I stood immediately, moving toward the door, but she grabbed my arm with surprising strength. Don't, she pleaded, her eyes wide with terror. He'll hurt you. I covered her hand with mine, steadying her. Not while you're here. Not while Noah's here. I won't let that happen. Her lips trembled, but she nodded faintly. I squeezed her hand once before pulling free and opening the door. Mark stood there, rain dripping from his jacket, his eyes sharp and cruel. He was taller than me, broad-shouldered, with that kind of arrogance that clung to him like a second skin. So this is where you've been hiding, he sneered, his gaze sliding past me into the apartment. Dragging my son around, shacking up with some stranger. The fury in his voice made my fists clench. She's not hiding, I said coldly. She's surviving. Something you clearly don't understand. Mark stepped closer, his jaw tightening. She's my wife, and that's my kid. You think you can just take them? Behind me, Lila's voice broke through, shaky but firm. You don't get to call yourself his father. You threw us out. For a second, I thought Mark would lunge past me. My body tensed, ready to block him, but instead, he smirked. You think you're safe here? He's mine, Lila. Legally, you can't keep him from me. And you. He jabbed a finger at me. You'll regret sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. I stepped forward, lowering my voice to something sharp and dangerous. If you ever come near them again, you'll regret it more. Trust me. We stared each other down, the air thick with unspoken threats. Finally, Mark gave a bitter laugh and backed away. This isn't over, he spat before turning and storming down the hall. When I shut the door, I turned to find Lila shaking, tears streaming down her face as she clutched Noah to her chest. I rushed to her, wrapping my arms around both of them. It's okay, I whispered fiercely. He's gone. You're safe. But even as I said it, I knew safety wasn't that simple. The law might still tie her to that man, and that terrified me more than any fistfight ever could. That night, after Noah was asleep, Lila sat curled up on the couch, her knees drawn to her chest. Her eyes were red, her voice quiet. He won't stop, she murmured. Mark doesn't lose. He'll fight for Noah, not because he loves him, but because he hates me. I sat beside her, close enough that our shoulders touched. Then we'll fight back, I said firmly. We'll find a way. You're not alone anymore." Her head turned slowly, her tear-streaked face catching the faint light. "Why?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why are you doing all this for me?" I exhaled, my heart pounding. There was no more hiding it. "Because I care about you, Lila. More than I should. More than I ever expected." Her eyes widened, shimmering, and for a moment I thought she'd pull away. But instead she leaned forward, resting her forehead against mine. The world outside melted away. The threats, the storms, the fear. All that mattered was her breath mingling with mine, the warmth of her so close. We didn't kiss, not yet. But in that fragile moment it felt like we'd crossed a line we couldn't go back from. After that night, something changed between us. Lila no longer looked at me like a stranger who had saved her in the rain. She looked at me like I was something she wanted to believe in, even if she was still afraid to. But Mark's threat hung over us like a storm cloud. For days I caught her glancing at the door every time footsteps echoed in the hallway, her arms tightening around Noah as though she might lose him at any second. I couldn't stand seeing her live in fear. So I made a choice. The next morning I called a lawyer I knew, a guy from college who owed me more than a few favors. I told him everything. About Mark, about the abuse, about how he had abandoned Lila and Noah. "Daniel, this is serious," he said. "But if she's willing, she can file for separation, maybe even custody. With evidence, it's winnable. Especially if he's as violent as you say." I looked across the room where Lila sat on the couch, rocking Noah gently, her eyes tired but still holding that quiet strength. "She's willing," I said firmly. When I explained it to her later, she went pale. "A custody battle with Mark? He'll destroy me." "No," I said, taking her hands in mine. "Not anymore. You won't face him alone. We'll do this together." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't just from fear. They were from hope, raw and tentative. Weeks passed. Papers were filed. Mark raged, showing up once more to scream threats in the hallway, but this time I was ready. The police escorted him away, and a restraining order was issued. Every step we took, no matter how terrifying, felt like a brick being lifted from Lila's chest. Through it all, our bond only deepened. I became Noah's late-night bottle holder, his lullaby singer when Lila was too exhausted to move. I became her sounding board, her safe place, her constant. And somewhere in that fragile space between survival and healing, love blossomed. It wasn't sudden, like a lightning strike. It was steady, like a sunrise. One night, after Noah had finally drifted off to sleep, I found Lila standing on the balcony again, staring out at the city lights. I stepped up beside her, the cool night air wrapping around us. "You've been quiet," I said gently. She turned her head, her green eyes reflecting the glow of the skyline. "I've been thinking about everything you've done for me, for Noah, about how different my life would be if you hadn't stopped that night in the rain." I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. "I'm glad I did, because it brought me to you." Her breath caught, and for a long moment we just stood there, the city humming beneath us. Then she whispered, almost too soft to hear, I love you, Daniel." The world seemed to tilt, every sound fading except those words. I reached for her hand, threading my fingers through hers. "Lila, I love you too. I don't just want to protect you. I want a life with you. With Noah. Both of you." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but her smile was radiant, brighter than I'd ever seen. And this time, when I leaned in, she didn't pull away. Our lips met, gentle at first, then deeper, carrying every unspoken promise, every moment of fear, hope, and longing we'd shared. When we pulled back, she was crying and laughing all at once. "I never thought I'd feel safe again, or loved." "You deserve both," I whispered, brushing a tear from her cheek. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you have them." Months later, after the court granted her full custody, we stood together in the same spot on the balcony, Noah asleep inside. The city sprawled out before us, endless and alive. Lila leaned into me, her head resting on my shoulder, her hand resting over mine. "Do you ever think about that night? The rain?" "Every day," I admitted, pressing a kiss into her hair. "Because it brought me my whole world." She smiled softly, her eyes closing as she whispered, "My world too." And as I held her close, Noah's gentle breathing drifting from the other room, I knew that stormy night in New York hadn't just changed my life. It had given me a family, a love I never knew I was waiting for, and a future worth every battle.